it is okay to take a risk versus being regretful of not doing what you wanted to do. Those sacrifices will all worth it. Education is a lifetime experience and it does not stop at the university. It only starts here. It's an incredible honor just seeing so much energy in one room. A huge round of applause for each of the graduating class of 2018. I'm sure we are all cognizant that we are blessed to be a part of this golden age of this country. India is going through an economic, a social, a cultural leadership process in the world stage. And when the story of all of this will be written 15 or 20 years later, the people who would have created this story will be all of us. So sometimes I think it's important to take a step back of all those last minute preparations and examinations, the excitement of graduation, and remember the big opportunity all of us have been bestowed with. Given this is such a big opportunity, I felt I could share some of the small learnings I have had in my short career by means of stories for all of you. Each one of you will create your own stories in the future and will end up talking about it many years from now. But I hope some of you will relate to the stories that I talk about now and probably use in your life journeys as you get started for them. In my short experience, I learned one very important thing. Life presents you with two opportunities or two options at all points of times, not four, A, B, C, D, like Kaun Baneya Crorepati, just two. Either a risk or, on the other hand, regret. I have learned always that whenever life presents you with either of these opportunities, taking a risk is always better than regretting not taking that risk many years from now. So what I want to talk about today is why risking it is better than being regretful about it in the long term. The first story that I want to talk about is that going after what you really, really want to do. You know, all of us are in our 20s. All of you are in your early 20s, which means that you have very limited liabilities in life. You don't have a husband or a wife waiting for you back home. You don't have kids whom you have to leave for school. Nowadays, admissions are hard in schools. I can tell you that by my colleagues. You don't have any of those pains. All you have is the ability to dream and go out and make an impact. So next few years, you'd see some of your friends getting better CTCs. But if you really enjoy doing something else, it's okay to let that be and not be the top CTC candidate. Remember, in the long term, it will all be worth it. Right after my 11th grade actually, I had the opportunity of being so ambitious about entrepreneurship. I used to read about entrepreneurs every day. There were two companies I was very inspired by. I was inspired by Royal Enfield and I was inspired by Indigo Airlines. So I used to take weekend trains from Kota to Delhi to come and listen to those entrepreneurs. Most of the people around me said, on weekends life is so good and you end up going every weekend to listen to entrepreneurs whom we don't even know about. Then I lived in a Barsati for a year in Delhi and worked from there to build really, really small businesses. Most of them, pretty insignificant. We do more. Those sacrifices were all worth it because I genuinely wanted to make a difference around myself. Which means that if each one of us have an ambition or we learn what we have an ambition about, it's okay to sacrifice the usual excitements in life for the next few years to do what you want to do. Which means it is okay to take a risk versus being regretful of not doing what you wanted to do. And 30 years later, being at a bar and telling your friends, you see this friend of mine who's done so well in his life, I could have also been like him if I had taken a risk. You don't want to be regretful like that. You want to be the person on the photo who's being talked about. The second one is living a very happy and ambitious life, but with a lot of discipline. But right after I decided that I want to be an entrepreneur, I used to read online on TechCrunch, Economic Times, and so on about entrepreneurs, and I felt what an easy thing it would be. You just choose a good idea, and if you're intelligent enough, it should just become successful. I was up for a reality check. When you show up for meetings 10 minutes late, people judge you. When you're not prepared before a conversation, people would judge you. And that would happen literally every hour of the day for 365 days multiplied by the years. That is the struggle that we would all go through before we start something really, really successful. All this period requires you to put significant amount of discipline. I'm very lucky to have 11 core CXOs in the company in India, and of course 5 more in China. These are people who come from Ivy Leagues, who've been the top guys at BCG, McKinsey, and so on, partnering with me. So every Monday morning, we all meet together and we discuss about what's going on in business, what are the challenges, opportunities, and so on. I start preparing on Sunday morning to make sure that next day, when I go and talk about the areas of opportunity, the areas that are challenges, and so on, I can continue earning the respect of all my colleagues to make sure that they continue to believe that I'm the right person to lead the company. That is just 1% of the amount of discipline and hard work that we would all have to go through in our lives if we believe there is a big outcome at the end of the day. Which means that long term, there is that risk of making sure that weekends, those evenings, you could have had a better time. I'm not asking you to stop them. You should have a great time. But when you're working, put in all the effort and discipline that you can behind it. So you don't have to regret later that in my early years, I could have worked harder and I could have been the best person in the field that I started working on. The third one is something slightly more interesting. Travel as much as you can. You know, I know parents are here. A lot of parents would say that abhi naukri lag gayi, to 2 saal baad gaadi, 5 saal baad ghar to lena hi chahiye. If in this period of time, you can save a little and spend on travel, वो 5 साल का 6 साल अगर हो जाता है, it won't hurt. Sorry parents. I have learned whatever I have learned in my short life by means of traveling across the world. I was born and brought up in the Odisha-Andhra Pradesh border in a place where 80% population is below poverty line. So for me, that was all the place that I knew about. The first time I came to Kota, I felt that the world was much broader. When I came to Delhi, the world became even larger. And then for 3 months, every day I stayed in a new bed and breakfast, new hotel, and so on. Which got me thinking that this is so exciting. World over, every hotel chain is 100 rooms or larger. 100 कमरे के hotel chains होते हैं, उससे बड़े होते हैं. But worldwide, 95% of the hotels are 100 rooms or smaller. So I felt, why is nobody opening a hotel chain which is 100 rooms and smaller? Because there are so many of them. Then I felt there could be either of 2 reasons. One, this is an idea that so many people have tried and failed, and I'm probably the 1000th guy doing it. Or second, this is something that nobody is seen, and probably I'm the first guy seeing it, so I should go do it immediately. As an entrepreneur, you are designed to be an optimist. You always see the positive in anything around you. So I saw the positive that at most I'm going to fail. And if I fail, it's okay. I'm still young and I have very little liabilities in life. That came about because for 3 months, every day I stayed in a new bed and breakfast, hotel, or so on. After that, when I started the company and I had just one hotel, I had the opportunity to be a Thiel fellow. How many of you have heard about Peter Thiel in this room? Some people, a lot of you. So Peter started a company called PayPal. And I watched this movie called The Social Network. And in that, the guy who writes the first check to Mark Zuckerberg was Peter Thiel. So I felt how good it would be for me for some time in my life to have an opportunity to see him. Eventually, I was lucky that I was the first Asian resident to be a Thiel fellow. Peter Thiel started PayPal and he gives $100,000 to 20 people across the world with a single view, which is that education is a lifetime experience and it does not stop at the university. It only starts here. When I was there, for the first time in California, I saw how big and ambitious people were. Here, I was always told by my father that if you are able to earn more salary than I am, you have done very well in your life. But there, people were thinking about how do I make the lives of millions and billions of people across the world better. There were people thinking about innovation and how do you create new things that makes a difference in people's lives. But the point I'm trying to make is all of these learnings, ye ambition, ye learning, the mistakes that you make, all of this comes because you see the world in a different view than just one city or one place. So whenever you get an opportunity to travel, from the smallest villages in India to the biggest cities in the world, kabhi bhi mauka mile, please take that hands down, even if that means that you might miss an important meeting or so on. I know all of you guys are bright enough to manage some of them. But the amount of learnings that travel brings is incredible.